Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar where we will be exploring the process for teacher assessed grades for the Essential Skills Northern Ireland suite of qualifications and Esol Skills for Life qualifications. My name's Amanda Kelly. I'm the Industry Manager for Maths and English and Employability at City and Guilds, and I am joined today by the rest of the pre-employment team. So we have Catherine and Paul on standby, as well as Catherine, your sales representative. So just to outline what I'm going to do today is I've got a number of slides to go through the process. We've left the question box switched on, so as thoughts occur to you or questions arise, please do type them into those into the question box. I'm not going to answer the questions live on air because we're actually in a very rapidly changing situation, and some of those questions I will need to go away and get definitive answers for. But the plan is, as a result of this, to draw up a set of FAQs which we will then make available on the website. We'll also do a slightly slicker version of this session as a recorded webinar, and that will also be available on the Northern Ireland tab of the nation's COVID-19 page. So, good afternoon, and let's get started. So the session is going to go over a couple of items that you may well be familiar with. So the key dates involved in this teacher assessed grades or centre determined grades process. So that's the first thing probably to clear up, is we've got a mixture in terminology. So the directive from the Minister in Northern Ireland was for a process for centre determined grades for essential skills. However, over here on the other side of the water, Ofqual have started a process of teacher assessed grades, which will affect the Esol and obviously other maths and English qualifications that sit within my brief. Because the systems were set up with functional skills first and foremost in our minds, the phrase teacher assessed grades or tags has been used quite widely. But in this case, when we use that phrase with reference to essential skills, we are meaning the centre assessed grades, centre determined grades as outlined in the guidance documents. So what we will do is go through the first step, which in this process, which is the eligibility bookings for Essential Skills 4800 and Esol Skills for Life 4692. And then we will look at eligibility status, so what happens after you've submitted that booking. And then what will happen after that, which is when you will submit the actual grades into the system, and a brief mention of the results. So key dates, we have published these key dates on our website in a Word document. So you're welcome to visit the COVID-19 Nations page and you will see a Word document with these dates in them, but I've also outlined them here. We are in the throes of the first assessment window, which is due to close shortly, and then the second window will open immediately afterwards. There's a short pause between the closure of the eligibility submission and then the point at which we open the window to submit the results into the system, and that's to allow for a process of quality assurance by City and Guilds and a determination about whether we can approve your request for eligibility for Esol. I'm aware that this process doesn't apply to essential skills. However, the system we're working with is quite restricted and it wasn't possible to flow a number of different situations. So we've had to offer these windows and they're quite rigid, but we think that they offer people sufficient flexibility. There will actually probably be further windows introduced after assessment window 3. But initially what we've done is we've introduced the first 3 windows because they take us to the end of August in terms of the release of results. So let's look first at essential skills. So for level 1 and level 2, and I'm sorry if this feels like I'm repeating things that you already know, but just to be clear, for reading and writing and application of number at level 1 and level 2, all external exams have been cancelled and the alternative process of centre-determined grades is in place. So I've just mentioned again here that because in England for functional skills this is referred to as teacher assessed grades, I do use the terms interchangeably throughout this presentation. The guidance to this process is in the document with the blue cover. So both documents are available from the COVID-19 page, Nations page, and there's a link to that on this slide, and we will post these slides on the website as well. But for speaking and listening at levels 1 and 2 and all assessments at entry level and for ICT, the centre determined grades process is not available, and instead there is a series of adaptations and alternative arrangements, and that can be found in the booklet with the green cover. So green for adaptations and blue for centre determined grades or tags. So in order to submit, I'm just going to talk about the tag process here, or sorry, the centre determined grades process for essential skills. So candidates must be registered for 480040 or 480050, communications or application of number. And what you will be doing now, based on the evidence that you have available to you, is to determine a grade for these learners who are registered for this qualification, and that grade will either be a pass or a fail. And this should apply for each candidate who would have been expected to take their essential skills exam between the 1st of March 2021 and the 31st of August 2021. Or for learners who were planned to take their essential skills exams during the 2021 academic year, but for reasons outside their control have not been able to access an assessment. And what you're going to do is create an eligibility booking for these candidates in the walled garden platform. So this is called an eligibility booking. And what you will do to submit your eligibility booking is to log into Walled Garden and select the Place Order button. Within that screen, you then select the order type Eligibility Booking. You will then be given a number of fields, information fields, which you will need to complete. Your centre number will auto-populate if you have just the one centre number. However, if you are one of our colleges who have several centre numbers for different parts of the organisation, you will need to select the relevant number from the drop-down list. So you are only creating a booking for one centre number. There is a submission window date, and it should show the current window. However, when you're within a week of the next window, when it moves on to the next window. So you need to adjust it to make sure that it shows the window that you're actually making a submission for. Then what you will do is select the assessment code for the booking that you're making. For example, level 2 application of number would be 4800-121. Now, I have been informed that there was an issue because that number was not showing. It was that particular assessment code for level 2 application of number was not showing. It was an incorrect code, but I've been assured that this has been corrected in the system, and so now you should be able to make eligibility bookings for level 2 application of number. The others, level 1 AON and level 1 and 2 comms, were working all right. As you create each booking, you need to give it a reference number so that you can locate individual candidates by their submission. And how you do that, or the format that you do that in, is entirely up to you. So this is a screenshot. I apologise because it's possibly a little bit fuzzy. I couldn't get a better screenshot of the system, but this shows the window. So at the top right, you can see the button Eligibility Booking has been selected, and you've got your drop down list for the centre number, a window, a box for which assessment window is being considered, then a list of the assessment codes. I'm afraid this image shows functional skills codes because I couldn't access it to take a screenshot for essential skills, so I apologise. And then there's a your reference box where we suggest you give a reference that you can refer back to. So the next stage, having created the booking, is to add candidates to it. So select the button that says Add Candidate. And there is 4 ways that you can find candidates to add to this booking. You can use the candidate details field, such as name, date of birth, or enrolment number, and search by those. If you use a name, for example, you might get numerous learners crop up, and then you can select which of those you want to add to the booking. You can use your cohort. So when you registered candidates, you may have registered them in a cohort. So you can select that option to choose learners for, or you can use individual enrolment numbers or multiple enrolment numbers. And finally, if you do have a unique learner number, you can use this to track candidates in the system. So once you have searched for candidates, so this is a screenshot showing the results of a search based on candidate details. So they put the name and the enrolment number, and as you can see, it's brought up one candidate, Jonathan Smith. So you tick in the select box and then click on the button that says Add to Booking. Once you've done that, you will get a prompt that says that candidate's been added to the basket. Do you want to select another candidate? And you will say yes, and then you'll repeat that process. There is a maximum number of learners that can be added to a booking, and that is 100. So each booking size has a maximum of 100. Now, we recommend that you use a cohort system to make your eligibility bookings. So you submit groups of candidates in cohorts. And as I say, the maximum number you can have in a cohort is 100. But you can submit as many cohorts per window as you want or need. So they don't have to max up to 100. You could just, if you have a particular group, you could put them in as one eligibility booking, and you could give it a cohort title that allows you to track that particular group. At the moment, as of today, you need to submit an eligibility booking in one sitting. So you have to create the eligibility booking and then select the candidates and add them to it and go all the way through to submit. Without leaving your machine, because at the moment the functionality to save part the way through and go back and add more candidates isn't working. We understand this functionality should be available shortly, i.e. early next week, and we will let people know once that is up and running. There are a couple of advantages to creating cohorts. So, for example, if you create a cohort of learners for the communications paper, you can then use that same cohort, but use them for an application of number eligibility booking. And if you have a group of learners and we go through to the approval stage and you're ready to put the results in, they can be grouped together like that, and you can pull them through the system as a cohort. So once you've created your eligibility booking and given it a cohort name, and you can see the image at the top right there with the name of the cohort, you will click Create to create the cohort, and then you will submit it. You'll get the obligatory dialog box that says, are you sure you want to submit? So you say, okay. And then you should get a confirmation of successful submission. It'll probably say something like, thanks for your submission, with a booking request number, which you need to take a note of. Alternatively, if there was a problem, it'll come back with an error message saying there was an issue submitting the eligibility booking, and it'll give you a list of potential issues so you can go through and tweak your booking to get it to submit. So let's move on to Esol, Skills for Life. So Esol, because it's regulated by Ofqual, has been subject to slightly different rules to those outlined for essential skills. So unlike essential skills where external exams have been cancelled, the rules for Esol is that teacher assessed grades are a last resort, and they should only be applied for where you can demonstrate that you cannot delay the assessment any further, and it is not possible to deliver the assessment face to face, and it is not possible to deliver the assessment remotely. And when those three conditions are met, you may consider applying for a teacher assessed grade to be put into the system. Now we have the same colour system for the guidance here. So the process document for the tags has the blue cover, and then the adaptations and the detail around how to manage entry level and writing and speaking and listening can be found in the green covered document. So the other change that applies for Esol is that because tags are a last resort, it's a regulatory requirement that we check each learner's eligibility for a tag against a strict set of criteria. So in order to do that, as well as creating eligibility bookings for those candidates that you're applying for tags for Esol, you also have to create an eligibility rationale form. So at the moment, this is available via the link on the website. We are doing a little bit of work on this because the form is not reporting quite the way we would like to do it. So it might, when you see it, the appearance might look slightly different to the screenshot that I've got here. But basically, the purpose of this eligibility rationale form, or ERF, is that it must give us the reasons in detail for why assessments cannot be delayed any further, or that face-to-face or remote assessment cannot be carried out. You only need to create one of these ERF forms per window. So for all of the learners that you're submitting for speaking and listening, or reading or writing, you only need one ERF form to cover all of those submissions. Now, if you have vastly different reasons for submitting learners, you could submit different ERF forms which describe the situation for different cohorts of learners, but the expectation is that you will only do one Esol. The other thing that is different, very different for tags for Esol, is that we will not be expecting you to submit fail grade. So unlike essential skills, where you will need to make a pass or fail judgment for your communications and application of number submissions, for Esol Skills for Life, a tag means we're looking for a positive result. We're looking for learners who would have achieved their qualification. So again, before you can complete the eligibility booking submission, you must make sure the learners are registered either for 469201, so the single modes, or 4692 for the full certificate. And the candidates must be assessment ready, which means that after a period of teaching and learning, you as the teacher are confident that in this moment of time, if they were to sit the assessment through usual methods, they would meet or exceed the pass standard. So you must have the evidence that you are confident of this. And if you're not confident that the learner would have passed, then you should delay applying to submit a tag and continue teaching and learning. So the tags are not for a future judgment, unlike last year where you were making a judgment about where a learner might be at the end of their course of study. This year is very different. A tag is about the learner who's standing in front of you, albeit virtually, now, and whether they are ready, they would pass the assessment. They're ready to take the assessment now. Now, there are, in fact, some learners, and we know from talking to colleagues at Belfast Met, for example, there are learners who were due to take their assessment between August last year and March of this. So these learners will have completed their course of study and are maybe classed as overdue their assessment. They will be considered eligible for a tag, provided that the end of the course is in the past and the assessment is overdue. They would have been considered eligible for a tag at the time they were ready to take a live assessment, and that you have supporting evidence to demonstrate that the candidate was assessment ready and was capable of passing. You also will need to demonstrate that it's not possible to invite the learner back now to take an assessment face-to-face, if that is possible, and that you've explored all possible adaptations to take the assessment. So again, you will complete eligibility booking through Walled Garden. So the notes here are the same as they were for essential skills in the way that you will create an eligibility booking. It's worth noting, however, that for level 1 and 2 reading, which we offer both paper-based and on-screen, the system will only display the on-screen Evolve assessment codes. So even if you would normally use paper, when you submit your application for tag eligibility, you will need to use the on-screen codes, and I've said which one is which there. The system has been set up to deal with only one set of codes per assessment type. Again, give your booking a reference number so you can locate individual candidates. And again, add candidates to that eligibility booking, so you will be able to select from all the learners that you currently have registered for Esol. So here we are, we've submitted our eligibility booking. What next? Well, the next stage is to check the eligibility status. So our quality teams will be reviewing the eligibility bookings. And for Esol, they'll also review the ERF with reference to the rationale that you've given for the eligibility approval request. And once they have done this, what they will do is mark each of those bookings up with one of 4 possible statuses: pending, when they're in the process of looking and a decision hasn't been reached, or a booking may be approved, or it may be rejected, or for Esol, it may say action needed. So action needed generally means that we need some more information to support your eligibility booking. So it might be that what you've written in the ERF doesn't match the types of learners that you've submitted through the booking. Or in the case of Esol, we may request further evidence to support that judgment. At the moment, we're not going to be requesting further evidence for essential skills because the Minister has mandated that exams have been cancelled. So you are likely only to have an approve or reject option for essential skills. But for Esol, should you have action needed, then what you will need to do is review the feedback by selecting action needed in the status box and select your booking, and then review the feedback. Now, in the guidance document, we give quite a number of screenshots to show you what that will look like. And if we do require further evidence for your submission, we will be advising you how to share that with us, because this will often involve candidate details where this will need to be done in a secure manner. So that's just being finalised at the moment. So I don't have the details to share with you just at the moment. But should you need to make further evidence available, we will let you know how to do that. Let's make the assumption that your eligibility booking has been approved. So the next stage will be for you to put in the results into the system. So as I said at the beginning, there are a series of windows, and the submission of tag results will open. I've just noticed an error in that middle box. The window to submit the results will open after a gap between the closure of the eligibility booking, and the key dates are in the beginning of this presentation, and I will amend this slide so that the red box in the middle shows the right dates. The expectation is that you will enter the results in walled garden using the same cohorts of learners that you've submitted the eligibility booking from. And I'm being a little bit vague here because I haven't yet been privy to that system, that part of the system and how it works. So I haven't really got anything to share with you other than the fact that that's going to be done through walled garden. And then the next stage will be the release of the results. Now, these are release results deadlines. Where at all it's possible, the results may go through the external quality assurance process more swiftly, and it might be possible to release results before this date, but these are the deadlines for each window. So if you've got any queries about this tag or centre determined grades process, we would ask that you email fs.quality@cityandguilds.com. I realise that that's a functional skills inbox, but we set the inbox up before realising that actually we would probably need to channel all of your queries through that. So our quality team are on the other end of that particular inbox. But if there's any other queries, our customer support team are always available to support you, and you can either phone them on that number or email them on centresupport@City and Guilds. Now, I'm going to draw breath. I feel like I've talked a lot. So I'm assuming, Paul and Catherine, we have lots of questions in the question box.
There are a couple, actually. One of them, I think I've sort of answered privately, but it's probably useful just to sort of rehearse for everyone's benefit. Making kind of is the candidate worthy of a pass, but also what kind of evidence is being used to back up those decisions. So it is a similar process. Going to be looking at the kind of the benchmark, that, if you like, the standard in terms of where things have been kind of addressed. So, and there isn't really one sort of one single right way of doing that, I suppose, in the sense that actually, depending on different types of assessment, there will be different forms of IQA. But the bottom line in that process is always that it's going to be about, obviously, that consistency of decision making across the whole, certainly across the whole centre, but also in terms of everybody involved in that process having an understanding of the required standard. So what we have done for Esol, for example, is made the sort of we've reproduced the assessment criteria just so it's clear what they are, and obviously they are the benchmark everybody should be working to.
I think it's worth me taking back and discussing with the quality team whether we're going to give further guidance on IQ, not guidance necessarily, but suggestions about IQA, maybe minimum requirements. So I'll take that back to the quality team and ask them. I'm planning to put these slide decks up on the website. Our digital marketing team, Friday afternoon is a bad time for them because everybody sends them stuff to be uploaded to the website. So if I can't get it up today on the website. It should be available early Monday, these slide decks. And then, as I say, we'll do a recording just so that you can listen back to this, should that be useful.
Yes, yeah. Another thought that's probably useful just to touch upon, and I guess it's about this difference between essential skills, where effectively it's a blanket process, and Esol, where we're obviously it will be particular individuals or particular small groups of individuals where there's a particular justification. Obviously, in the case of essential skills, there are going to be inevitably more candidates having to go through this process than will be the case. I guess it's important to understand, obviously, in terms of that booking process on the walled garden, you can put through batches of up to 100 at a time, but obviously, certainly thinking about colleges, in reality, you're going to have more than 100 candidates going through this process. So they're obviously going to need to be a sensible way of slicing up those batches.
Nicola pointed out that perhaps the last time I did a webinar, I said guidance about the internal quality assurance process will be issued shortly. It's probably, I'll apologise now, we're often working on information that we're provided with by other parts of the business, and sometimes other pressures happen and things don't get dealt with quite as quickly as we would like. So I apologise if you've been waiting for that information, because I led you to believe it would be available shortly. Is there anything else, Paul, that we're seeing?
Just in terms of questions, there don't seem to be any more specific ones. I mean, I think probably worth saying, obviously, you're welcome to email us at any time as well, in that we've got obviously that standard mailbox that we use for queries, pre-employment@citygoals.com. So obviously, if anything else comes to mind in the meantime, you're welcome to drop us a line there.
I think it's worth saying that this has been a very big and slow process to get on the road, and I think we would all acknowledge that it's not moved as quickly as we would like, and that may have been a challenge to you in the centres in terms of the dates been provided. And I can take that feedback back, but regrettably there hasn't been possible to release that earlier. In terms of the assessment, the adaptation guide, but we'll take your comments back and see if we can give you a
bit of a dilemma over how we do that also. I mean, I think we're obviously conscious we want to give as much of a steer as we can in terms of sufficiency, but there's also a danger of being overly prescriptive as well, in the sense that you can sometimes precise about saying you must have X number of sample tests. And I think we're also very conscious that there will have been quite a lot of work sort of in form value of that either. So it's at that point about trying to sort of, if there are maybe some what if type examples, then to kind of help with that. And I appreciate that so being useful, just giving a little bit of, I guess, add some pragmatism in all of these. It's come up with quite a few of these sort of conversations recently. Is making a decision. Would the learner have passed the normal assessment now if it was in front of them, rather than to bear in mind in the sense that any decisions going forward, you kind of, from an assessor.
Okay, thank you. What I think I'm going to do now is we're going to go off Paul to type the questions. I have just seen one about a candidate to share, because that was in just so you can add your questions so that we can take them offline and then get a full response for you.